Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of the Ademola Bookmen Podcast, and this is an AFCON special. Today we're doing Committed, the book of twice African Footballer of the Year, Didier Drogba. Hello, Johnny.
Hello, Al. How are you? I have a little game for you.
Ooh, very exciting little game.
I'm going to give you some African team names, nicknames, and let's see how you do, okay? I'm going to give you 5. Okay?
Okie dokie. All right.
Okay, I'm going to soft bat this one for you. The Super Eagles.
Nigeria.
Okay, ding.
All right. Okay. My pride is sealed.
Bafana.
South Africa.
Not bad, Al. It roughly translates as the boys. Black Stars.
That's Ghana.
Very good, Al. And I think that's
hey, look at me.
Okay. Atlas Lions.
Atlas, Morocco.
Oh, very good.
Really? Genuinely?
Yeah. And then my favourite is this one. Indomitable Lions.
All right. Cameroon.
Very good.
And that's, folks, why I host a football podcast, because of my massive football knowledge. Yeah, every continent. Go on, give me Asian nicknames. Go on.
Well, just on that one, on Cameroon, I've got their shirt on for the day, but they have crashed out of AFCON as a result of 2 goals by none other than
Ademola Lookman.
Lookman.
Yeah.
Shout out
boy.
Yeah, exactly. Just a couple of other fun names from Africa. The Sparrow Hawks of Togo, the Eagles of Carthage from Tunisia, and the Copper Bullets from Zambia. That's all good fun, isn't it?
Copper Bullets.
Yeah, that's a nice
I
one.
like that.
Let your body spin.
Johnny, this book. Oh, goodness me.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we could have read a Wikipedia page, couldn't we? We could have read a Wikipedia page with slight interjections of, I'm a man and I have emotions. And I love Roman Abramovich.
The book is called Commitment, which is a dreadful name, a dreadful title for a book. It's written like it was written by like a child, really. Like the language is really, really basic or something.
Well, that's right. I mean, with all these, he's obviously writing in his second language, so you have to have some allowances there.
I did Google looking for the ghostwriter. I didn't see anything, which is not to say there wasn't one, but yeah, maybe he did genuinely write this one. In the parts where he's talking about growing up and trying to make it as a footballer, it's extremely, extremely dull. When it gets to the Chelsea stuff, at least there's some, little morsels of interest in there.
So let's get going. So he was born in the Ivory Coast.
Yeah, this part I didn't know. Like I just assumed he grew up in the Ivory Coast, but no. His uncle was a professional footballer in France, and at a young age, that's where Drogba went to grow up.
So Didier's parents sent him to live with his uncle, thinking that he could have a better life in France, and obviously, seeing his uncle being a professional footballer obviously would have imbued Didier with the confidence that he too could do that. So he had some ups and downs. He bounced back. He went back to Ivory Coast now and again to be with his parents, but eventually he ended up in France.
So he's this extremely, emotional, kind of mercurial character. And if you send him a nice text message or say a nice thing about Didier Drogba, he will be loyal to you for the rest of his life.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. Frank Lampard sent him a text, didn't he? And he's, oh my God, a text.
He didn't just say, oh my God, he kept the telephone. He said he kept the phone because the text message meant so much to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's an indictment on the book, really. But the most interesting bit comes right at the end, which is basically his list of achievements, and also it's like a bunch of listicles, like my favourite players, like the best players I ever played with. And that is actually the best bit of the book. By the way, his top 5 Chelsea players, number 1. Can you remember who his number 1 top 5 Chelsea player is?
No, I don't remember this part of the book, but
I'll give you a clue. He's not a player and he's Russian. Yeah, it's Abramovich. His number one Chelsea player of all time ever is Roman Abramovich. My God.
Yeah, cheekers. That's amazing, isn't it? And who's number 2? Jose.
Yep. Got it in one.
He loves Jose, which is not a huge surprise. When you see the managers that he's played under, it's all of with the exception of Pep and Ferguson, I guess, it's all of the huge names of management in the last, whatever, in that 10-year period. Ancelotti, Mourinho, Roberto Mancini, Scolari, there was Hiddink. He'll tell you which ones he liked and make some effort at explaining, but he just never goes very deep, Drogba.
No. There's no details. I mean, even the managers he doesn't like, he doesn't really have that many bad words for them. Sometimes he's frustrated at not starting and there's a lack of communication, but there's no zingers there, is there?
He's the same age as Henry. Like Henry and Trezeguet were young players in the 1998 squad that won the World Cup. And Drogba was at home watching it on television. Now, you kind of learn later in the book that obviously Drogba played for Ivory Coast, but you can kind of detect that he would have played for France had he been chosen as a younger player, right?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, he was one of those, he bloomed. I mean, he didn't reach Chelsea till he was, 26, 27?
Well,
he bloomed much later.
Yeah, like, so Henry is 4 months older than Drogba. And at the age of 20, Henry had won the World Cup. And Drogba was sitting at home watching it on television as an injured sub at a League B team. And he didn't get his first professional contract until he was 21.
He bounces around second division teams. So who does he play for? Who does he get signed for? Le Mans?
Le Mans, and then he goes to Guingamp.
That's right. Yeah.
In Brittany.
At which he made a name for himself. And then he gets into the Ligue 1 with Marseille, which is a cool team, isn't it? I'd play for Marseille.
Guingamp came up, I think. So I think they're kind of like an up and down Ligue 2 team. He was in and out of the team. What's very clear is that he's very temperamental, I think, Drogba, and he requires huge support from his managers. But the managers who give him that get it back from him in spades. At least this is how he portrays things. But if a manager doesn't have faith in him, he seems to get demotivated and find himself on the bench and struggle to get back in the team, that kind of thing,
And I think he feels let down by the managers when they don't play his preferred system.
Like, as you say, he was born in Ivory Coast. He left when I think he was 5. He was in France with his uncle. And then he was just trying to make it, but he doesn't really say anything that's interesting. It only gets interesting, really, when he gets to Marseille.
Yeah, that's right. At Marseille, he kicks some ass.
Yeah.
And this is when he comes to the international recognition, right? There's a UEFA Cup run, and certainly that's when I first noticed him. I think he played against Newcastle.
Yeah, he said that, all right, in the book.
Yeah, and I remember that game, Johnny. I remember seeing him play and thinking, ooh, look at that lad.
He was Player of the Year for Marseille, and he was the 3rd highest scorer. Number 1 being Djibril Cissé. Their careers went in different directions, didn't they? That's funny.
He had a good couple of years, did Cissé, didn't he? He was all right for a bit.
Yeah, he was okay for a bit. Exactly.
The Lord of Frogdale.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that. That's nice. He was a Marseille fan. He was hurt, I think, when Marseille showed him the door because they got big money for him. One thing that Drogba returns to repeatedly in the book is that because he had this, as a child, he moved around so much, he really craved stability. So when he got settled in Marseille, his boyhood club, he was happy to stay and he wanted to stay. And then Chelsea came in with big money. And he was essentially saying, I want to hang around, spend another year here. And they were like, well, they might not come back in a year with the same amount of money. So I think DJ was upset and was a little heartbroken even. Apparently, in his telling of the press conference, he was really upset. So, they're announcing this big move in his life and he's just sitting there really sullen and upset. So yeah, it's a funny start for his Chelsea career, really.
And because Chelsea at that point in time were not what they would become, were they? They'd at that point no league titles.
And on this point, I had a question for you. You reckon for Chelsea fans, that period under Jose, do you think that in the memory of Chelsea fans, that was the best period? I bet it was.
Oh yeah, I'd say so. I mean, that's when people didn't absolutely routinely hate them as well. I was quite thrilled by Chelsea at that period.
Yeah, and like they had two Champions Leagues since under two different managers, but I bet you that was the best part. And by God, did they love Jose at the time?
I just note here when he went to, as you're saying, he was very upset when he had to go to Chelsea from Marseille, and he says he was too upset to pack his bags to go to Chelsea, so he made his wife do it. Nice ruse there, did he? Oh, I'm too upset to pack. Oh, you're gonna have to do it, darling. Oh, I'm too upset to do the washing up. Oh.
What I thought was nice actually when he was saying that, and he went to England with no English, and he said, other than some nonsense sentences you learn in France, like, where is Brian? Brian is in the kitchen. That's in the book, like.
Yeah, that's good.
What an exciting time at Chelsea. Like, so in that summer, Jose had played against them with Porto. That year that Porto won the Champions League, they'd played against Marseille and put Marseille out of the Champions League in the knockout stages. And it was Jose really who had his eye on Drogba. So they arrived in the same summer. But they also signed Arjen Robben, Peter Cech, Ricardo Carvalho from Porto. Like, it was a pretty exciting time for Chelsea. Like,
yeah, their recruitment at that stage was phenomenal. I mean, I guess they were just splashing money around, though, right? I mean, at the time, what was check was like 12 mil, which at the time for a goalkeeper was pretty expensive.
And when Drogba arrived at Chelsea, he didn't know who John Terry was. That's how little he knew about Chelsea.
Thought he was a youth team player.
Yeah.
I don't really understand that. Who's that kid?
But then in terms of his career, what was interesting in his own recounting of that first and second season in Chelsea, he was proudly hated by everyone, even his own fans who booed him.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't really remember that. I don't remember him being unpopular. In one post-match interview, he did declare that he does indeed dive, which became a big albatross around his neck.
Yeah, so he two incidents in his second season. A handball at Fulham, and he poked Richard Dunn in the eye.
Poor old Richard Dunn.
Yeah, Richard Dunn shows up in all the books doing something stupid and lame. Lovely Richard Dunn. After these two incidents, he was interviewed on television, and his English was so poor he didn't really know what was going on. So he just said, "Where is Brian? He's in the kitchen." They asked him essentially, "Did you dive?" And he was like, "Yep."
They all do. I mean, that's it. I mean, the English press getting all carried away with someone speaking in their second language and making like an indelicate admission. It's always been bullshit.
In his first season, like they were winning all around them from the very start, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they were absolutely a phenomenal team back then, weren't they? One of the great Premier League teams.
So in his first season, he won the League and the League Cup.
And he scored in the League Cup final.
Yeah, and you were saying earlier about kind of the listicle stuff. He's got a super list of achievements. One of them being that he just cannot stop scoring in finals, that fella.
9 goals. I mean, that's genuinely astonishing, right?
The first player to score in 4 FA Cup finals.
Cometh the hour, cometh the man. He's a big game player, right? I mean, genuinely, in the absolute truest sense. Like,
I'm really jumping ahead now, but when they did win the Champions League, Ferguson said Drogba won them the Champions League, so he kind of hauled them along in the memory of Fergie.
That's right. Yeah, he loved finals, and he also loved Arsenal. Do you remember back in the day? I think it was the League Cup. No, what do you call it? Charity Shield. And I remember him absolutely terrorising Senderos. Absolutely terrorising. But old Wenger never learned. Philippe, I want you to mark Didier Drogba. Oh, no, please, no, not again. No, I think it will work out better this time. Let you mark Drogba. He fucking destroyed him time and time again. He would just go through him. And Senderos wasn't little. So he had his first season at Chelsea. At this point, is not greatly loved by the Chelsea fans, but has still won the league. He's very, very insistent that he likes a nice, clear pre-season. If he has a good pre-season, he feels he's going to be good, right?
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting. Like, you know, in a kind of dry sense, as interesting as things got in this book. He also said that when he was at Gangon, he hired 2 kind of physios that worked with him for his whole season or his whole career. And he said that like on a given day, he might do stretches for 3 hours. Like that's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, that is insane. And it's the first time ever I've really looked at it and thought, oh, maybe I wouldn't want to be a footballer. I mean, like 3 hours of stretching a day, how much is that worth to me? Like, I don't care for stretching.
All throughout his career, when he really had a great year, it was preceded by a good preseason, and usually a preseason in which he wasn't at a major competition.
Yeah,
anytime,
absolutely right.
Anytime he went to the World Cup, then he'd come back and have a crappy season for his club. It was after this first season that he received a text message from Frank Lampard, and he said,
Which was,
"Go on,
hi DD, I hope you're staying because we have to win the league and Champions League together." Oh, what a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. I hope you're staying because we need to do this.
It's touching.
I'm never going to throw this phone away.
So he said, yeah, it happens a few times when these ordinary things happen or are said to there's these very small gestures that people make towards Drogba, which just make him the most loyal and dedicated person. So he loved that message so much that he kept the phone. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, it's also interesting in this chapter, which really is his golden season. He talks about, this is contrast to Barton, when he's had a competition as a striker, because at this time I think he was competing with Crespo, or maybe this is the point where he's competing with Shevchenko.
It was Crespo. Yep.
It was Crespo. He's never had a negative rivalry, always a positive one. He always uses his teammates to spur him on as opposed to kill them like Joey wanted to do, like
hospitalize them. He seemed to drive him to kind of greater heights even, which says a lot about his commitment, I suppose.
No, there he is. Well, and that said, so I'd say this: Crespo, Shevchenko and Torres, they were all kind of signed to replace him, right?
Yeah,
it felt that way. So I mean, they were players who were coming in, especially the Crespo signing, when he wasn't firing on all cylinders. And he saw them all off, right? And in all fairness,
maybe he was secretly stymieing them one way or another. He's the same as Barton, but he was just a lot sneakier about it. We don't know.
Yeah, that's right. And he didn't put it down in print.
Drogba says that one of the things that people always ask him, what's so special about Jose? And Al, tell me, after reading this book, do you think that you know what was so special about Jose?
I think I always knew what was special about Jose. I mean, the man was absolutely magnetic at the start, right? Everyone fell in love with him. He was your tabloid prince. He was front page news. And without ever speaking to me personally or talking to me, he made me feel special.
From reading different things about Jose, he seems to be able to read his players well and know how to tailor his message to the individual. And certainly with Drogba, he managed to really get a lot out of him. And I think when Jose left Chelsea, Drogba was kind of heartbroken, right? And he even went to see Abramovich. But he insisted, he had to kind of reassure Abramovich at the end that he was still dedicated to Chelsea. But yeah, I think it sounds like he was really, really upset about the whole thing.
I think he said in an interview, which he appears to do every season, that he wasn't sure if he'd be at the club next season under Avram Grant.
Jose can definitely, he's able to arouse some kind of fealty in his players. And here I think also his timing was just so good. He arrived at that really sweet spot for Chelsea when they were bringing in all of these amazing players, as we said, and everything was on an upward curve, and there must have been such a kind of an exciting sense of momentum and stuff.
And they were the only team at that time, it would appear, who had that sort of spending power. This was pre Man City, mega state. Chelsea were the team with unlimited resources. Nobody else had that. And it wasn't really a time of financial fair play either, was it? It was just, if you had the money, you could spend it.
The other thing about Jose that Drogba says is that he makes players into winners. Now, he doesn't go into much in terms of the methodology involved, but that's what he said. He kind of instilled this winning mentality in all of these players who were already good players, but Jose made them obsessed with winning. And you can see that they were nasty enough bunch, weren't they?
Cynical. I mean, I think that was like a benchmark. Like Chelsea would go 2-0 up and then they would shut the game down. And that was the end of the game. It would be just then 2-0. I mean, they were phenomenal in defence. I mean, that defence is absolutely golden. I mean, Ashley Cole, John Terry, Carvalho, and one more right back with Czech behind them. What a defence that was.
Yeah, they were pretty good. So Drogba says that he looks at everything in 3-year cycles. And after Jose had been there for 3 years, in his first 3 years, they won the league twice. They didn't win anything in his third season. And it was a few weeks into his fourth when Jose was sacked by Abramovich. And obviously we learned since that Abramovich was pretty trigger happy when it came to his managers. But perhaps he jumped the gun a bit with Jose because, yeah, like he didn't give Jose much, like one bad season. But Drogba does say that Jose was starting to lose the players a bit. Some of them weren't listening. And I think for the ones that were loyal to Jose, that they felt pretty pissed off with these guys that just started to ignore Jose's edicts. And Jose had started kind of protecting his players a bit, whereas Abramovich wanted to win both the league and the Champions League. Jose was trying to kind of make excuses, I think, maybe for his players at this point. And when Drogba went and confronted Abramovich said, the reason I gave him a few weeks, the reason I waited until now is I should have sacked him after the third season, but I gave him the start of the fourth season to see if he could turn it around, but he didn't. That was the end of it.
Well, Roman had an Israeli ace up his sleeve, didn't he? Like, yeah, no, thank you, Jose. I've got the new big dog in town, Avram Grant. Anyway, so they did. They reached the Champions League final, the famous Russian final against Manchester United. And what did Didier do?
Drogba got sent off. And when you think that, you mentioned that he is this absolute machine for scoring in finals and scored a lot of penalties in finals. In the African Cup of Nations, they routinely went to penalties in big matches, and he seemed to score a lot of them. So I think that little slap on Vidic's face in extra time might be really what cost Chelsea the Champions League that year.
Yeah, it was a funny old final, wasn't it? Because it was a great United team as well, in all fairness. That was Rooney and Ronaldo, right? That was when they were at there. That was the second or maybe third great Fergie team.
Yeah, Rooney and Ronaldo.
It was not a great final, though, was it? It was not a great game.
And, Chelsea had the better chances, really. Like, they hit the post, didn't they? Lampard hit the post. And I think Giggs cleared one off the line. So, yeah, these things are finely poised, really, aren't they?
They really are. It's fine margins, isn't it?
Drogba said that his grandmother was sick, and for the final, he was just kind of wandering around for parts of it. I guess he was implying that it was kind of this issue that maybe made him lash out at Vidic and got him sent off. But I suppose it's something we never really think about. Players just have shit going on in their lives.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. You'd like to think they can put it aside for 90 minutes. Although, honestly, Johnny, I read that and I thought, bullshit. Come on, man.
Yeah.
I didn't believe that. That was made him slap Vidic. He just had a bad moment and just own it. Like, don't blame your grandma.
Yeah, and he didn't rush to her hospital bed either. She died later when he was on holidays with the family.
Couldn't enjoy the holiday either. Didn't play well in that holiday. Thinking about his grandma.
Anyway, that was the end of Avram Grant. Cut down in his prime, Avram. So then Scolari came in, and this was fun, I suppose, because Scolari didn't fancy Drogba a bit. And what Drogba said is that Avram Grant had the sense to keep Steve Clarke on, and he brought in another coach from Barcelona. And I think essentially Avram Grant kind of, because he had never coached at the highest level, surrounded himself with people who were really knowledgeable, and that was sensible. But when Scolari came in, Clarke left. Scolari was working through a translator. And I think Scolari probably just struggled. He does say that Scolari just didn't get it. That the cut and trust of English football, Scolari was like he had them doing kind of old school kind of training, just long runs and conditioning kind of stuff, like old fashioned conditioning stuff. And he was reassuring the team that come Christmas and the New Year, when everybody had kind of dropped off, they would be really fit. But they just kind of never got going on their Scolari, and he couldn't get his message across. They were badly prepared, both physically and tactically, and they were just getting stuffed.
I just think if you don't speak English, and I think Scolari was already 60 by the time he joined Chelsea, I just don't think that's ever going to work out for you. You know, the old dog, new tricks. It's one thing, Pochettino coming over when he's 38 and picking up English, but I think it's another thing entirely, 25 years on.
Yeah, that didn't work out. He was gone by February, and he left with a kind of a little sting in the tail. I think he had a public attack on the players in an interview, which is always fun. That was the end of Big Phil, and in came Hiddick, won the FA Cup, came third in the league, got to the semi-finals of the Champions League, but it's not enough for Abramovich.
Well, I think this is one of, in all fairness, Drogba's most iconic moments is the semi-final against Barcelona, and Chelsea were robbed. That ref was, as Didier described him, a disgrace. He's a disgrace. And he was. It was outrageous. Chelsea were robbed there. I remember watching it at the time and just being absolutely pig sick. Disgusting what football does to you, isn't it? It's Chelsea. Oh, this is poor Chelsea. Poor Chelsea. And Droggy goes absolutely nuts. Screams at the camera. It's all a disgrace. But as he says, I'm just saying what the fans are thinking.
Yeah,
you can't do what the fans are thinking. You're a player. That's the whole point. Like, you can't do that. That's why. In fact, sometimes our amazed players don't get in more trouble for like going crazy at the ref. It must be so frustrating. I know how I feel watching. Be on the pitch when it just seems like that ref is 1,000,000% against you. Yeah. But I know what I was like as a player. I was always ready. To storm off the pitch at the slightest thing. Like, no, it's our throw. Oh, fuck this ref. I'm off. Fuck off. We're done. Come on, lads. Come on. You're not with me. Yeah, I was very sensitive. But this is an iconic Drogba moment. And I do feel sympathy for Chelsea. I do feel sympathy for Chelsea in that. They were robbed.
Yeah, and Hiddick did that thing, the Capello Rooney thing, told him to run around less, get up there by the goal and try and put it into it. So he liked Hiddink, but Hiddink was only going to be temporary. So he came and he went. This is when he started talking about his faith.
Yeah, he's a good Catholic.
Yeah, and he credits God with a few assists over the course of his career. He scored a winner in the FA Cup semi-final that year against Arsenal with 6 minutes to go. And I'd say, he scored the equaliser against Everton, and Lampard scored the winner. But yeah, Drogba credits the man upstairs with those assists.
So what does he think God did when they lost to Barcelona? Does God hate him then?
Well, he got an interesting outlook, right? He says that he would walk around the pitch and essentially praying and asking God to help him out. And whenever that happened, he was like, thanks, God, you're a legend, etc. And then when he lost, like the Champions League final that he was sent off in, he's like, sometimes it's just not your day. What an outlook, you know?
All right, then. So now we move on to Eyebrow Ancelotti.
See, Ancelotti did the right thing by calling Drogba up on the telephone and telling him that he liked him.
What a magnificent gesture. Gesture.
Yeah. And that, like you said that earlier on, that his first couple of seasons at Chelsea were his golden era, but he won the Golden Boot under Ancelotti's first season.
Well, Chelsea's stats were absolutely astonishing. They got the double, scored 103 goals in the league that season, a goal difference of 7 plus 71. I mean, that is a convincing season. I mean, that's a plus goal difference of pretty much 2 goals a game.
Yeah.
He scored in the FA Cup final again.
And just on the thing about his stats, he was the first African player to score 100 Premier League goals. Did you know that?
Yeah, I was surprised he did score 100 goals, actually. I always thought he was one of those players that was on the cusp. But yeah, that's right.
He kind of deals with his international career later, but he puts it in here to say that he had a crap season the year after the World Cup in South Africa. He was playing for a few weeks with undiagnosed malaria, which doesn't sound like a great combination. And it was that January that they brought in Torres. And as you said, it was essentially to replace him. But luckily for Drogba, Chelsea did not sign the Torres that was playing for Liverpool. They signed a completely different Torres, like a body double.
I mean, going back to the malaria, I'm astonished that a player from West Africa would be so surprised they have malaria. I have a little bit of personal experience. Everyone has fucking malaria all the time. I lived there and I had it 5 times.
Again, he grew up in France, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, maybe you are right.
So Torres didn't score for 3 months when he signed for Chelsea.
But he'd already been rubbish for Liverpool for a spell, hadn't he?
Yeah, and they thought Drogba was finished. Obviously, he was in his 30s, and maybe there's always a kind of sense that players that are that physical don't age well. So Torres came in, not for the first time. Drogba found himself kind of on the bench. United put them out of the Champions League. United won the league. Interestingly enough, his assessment of Ancelotti was kind of contrary to what I would have thought. He said he was a great coach, but he was not great at reading his players, which I thought maybe that was Ancelotti's thing.
Yeah, that's right. It's very difficult to really put your finger on what is so great about Ancelotti, isn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, Roman Abramovich was absolutely jonesing for the Champions League. So out goes Carlo Ancelotti. And in comes AVB.
Lovely AVB.
AVB had been with Jose during Jose's first stint at Chelsea. So Drogba and all the other players, kind of the big players, were really happy to see him come back. But I suppose at this point, really, it was probably just a bad situation for AVB to find himself in, really, because those players were such outsized characters in the dressing room at this stage. I guess they control the team entirely. And then they bring in a guy like AVB, who I guess is just trying to cut his teeth in management. So maybe it wasn't a good formula for him. AVB was trying to phase out the classic Chelsea team, but Drogba says that he wasn't upfront about it. He was rotating between strikers, Drogba, Anelka, and Torres. They were each starting one game in 3, which is just weird, isn't it? Like, it's a weird way to go about things.
Yeah, it's absolutely weird. I mean, I guess he can justify trying to keep them fresh, but
Trying to keep them happy, I guess, is what he was trying to do.
But Drogba repeats, he plays well when he plays. He gets into a rhythm. He talks about his rhythm a lot, and he feels he's just not suited to coming in for a game, sitting out for a game. Not at all. He needs to play every game to play his best.
They were having a bad time under AVB, and AVB called in the main cast of players. So John Terry, Lampard, Cech, and Drogba. And he's saying, what's going on? Why do we keep losing? And then he says, can we win the Champions League? And Drogba says, no. And then the rest of them say yes. Out goes AVB, and in comes Roberto Di Matteo. Let's talk about this Champions League final now.
Yes.
How much do you think Bayern Munich fans hate corners in Champions League finals?
Yeah, never really thought about it.
Jesus wept. Yeah, so it happened to them again, all over again.
Yeah, it did. At home. Is that worse? Yes.
Yeah. The goal that Muller scored against Peter Cech, how did that go in? Kind of one of those headers that went straight down, but it went at Cech's feet, and it kind of just looped over him, but it was pretty poor.
I can forgive Thomas Muller anything. I don't know why. I love that kid.
Drogba, like, having been sent off in the Champions League final in 2008, he did his best to kind of scupper this one as well, didn't he? Okay, he rescues them. Mata puts in this corner. Drogba at the front post scores a beautiful goal, really. Maybe question marks on the goalkeeper. Not sure. Then in injury time, he gives away a penalty. Come on, Drogba, huh?
He loves giving away penalties, doesn't he? He loves it. It's not the only one he gives away as well. And it's always in my effort to help the team.
Who took the penalty, Al?
Well, he took an unconventional style of penalty, didn't he? Because he cut in from the right and then hit it on his left foot. No, he didn't. Arjen Robben, right? Arjen Robben.
That's nice. Yeah, so according to Drogba, they were kind of getting into his ear about him being a Chelsea man.
Come on, you're a Chelsea player.
Yeah, so he missed the penalty and it went to a shootout. And Drogba scored the winner, but he wouldn't have gotten to take any penalty kick had Olic, who had just come on as a sub, not missed his because Chelsea had missed.
Massive miss the first one, right?
Yeah, it was a shocker, wasn't it?
After absolutely, pleading to take it, apparently.
Yeah.
He wasn't meant to be number one, but he insisted, and then he missed.
There's a lot of penalty shootouts in the book, and Drogba said you always put your best takers at 1, 3, and 5. So he was 5 on this occasion. Yeah.
His technique was he waits and he waits and he waits. He didn't like too long a run up because he reckons the keeper can interpret your intentions.
Yeah, so, yeah, exactly. Even like a run up of 2 steps. That's amazing, isn't it, that they can do that?
Yeah, I think so. But is it not true? I've always believed my whole life, if you just find the corner, any corner, you'll score your penalty, right? As long as you hit it decent.
But if it was that easy, nobody would miss a penalty.
These bloody footballers. Come on, lads. It's just practice, isn't it? Why don't they practice penalties?
But yeah, that's the Champions League final. And that was, I suppose, going to be Drogba's last ever kick for Chelsea. Not a bad way for him to go out.
Yeah, that's the way to go, isn't it?
Really, in terms of the book, the most interesting parts were what happened when he was at Chelsea.
Well, certainly from our perspective. I mean, for our Chinese listeners, they might be more interested in the subsequent chapters.
Yeah, where he goes. Was it Guangzhou? It was Guangzhou, was it?
No, it's Senua Shanghai.
Very nice. Where he was known as the Almighty, Tout Puissant.
Yes, I thought he took that a little bit seriously because he had an African friend who lived in Shanghai for a while, and and he was like, "Oh yeah, people here, they think you're a god," and he's like, "They do? Oh, that's not good." I don't know if they really think you're a god. I mean, I think Morgan Gibbs White is a god, but I don't think Morgan Gibbs White actually thinks he's on Mount Olympus with Zeus. He's just a really good player. I think he accepts that. But Drogba took it very seriously. Oh, these Chinese people think I'm a god. Well,
he also said that he was a metre taller than everybody in China.
That stuck out to me as well. A metre?
Because then he really kind of would be a god, I suppose.
Well, you're absolutely right. So he had a nice time in China. He seemed to embrace his time there. I do notice there was one point where they didn't receive their wages and he went on strike, but he'd like to make that clear. He was doing that for the Chinese players to insist that they got paid. Yeah,
he also said that the reason I went to China and subsequently to Turkey was to have different experiences. Of course, the pay package was good. So I looked it up. He was getting like 200 grand a week, which, I guess now is kind of standard for fellas like that. But at the time, 200 grand a week was like, was serious money.
Yeah, real money. Lovely money. Although, I think it was more the cultural experience, which he was embracing.
Yeah, the cultural experience. And he immediately hightailed it when there was problems paying him. He was out the door.
You get a lot of culture, 200 grand a week, don't you? There's a lot of culture there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he had a brief but memorable stay in China. And then after the failure to pay his wages, he was looking to get back to Europe. He had the opportunity, apparently, to go to Juventus with Conte. But instead, and I don't blame him for this, he chose Galatasaray.
So one thing that I didn't know is, Galatasaray and Fenerbahce being the two big teams of Istanbul, but one is in Asia and one is in Europe. That's kind of fun, isn't it?
It is fun.
Yeah,
it is fun.
So Galatasaray being the European one and Fenerbahce across the Bosphorus in Asia Minor.
Yeah, I always believe that Galatasaray are the elite club and the Fenerbahce are the working class club, which might also be the European-Asian divide as well in terms of how they perceive it. I mean, for me, Galatasaray hold like a special place in my heart. I mean, I'm afraid Welcome to Hell still rings with me. I remember that game from way back and just being so thrilled. In my imaginary football career, I would play for Galatasaray before I headed off to the Brazilian League for a year.
Let me just say, in your imaginary football career, you've represented a heck of a lot of clubs over the years.
I've won a few European Cups as well, I can tell you. And I've won some of those European Cups single-handed.
Yeah, injured.
At great personal cost to myself as well. Cementing me in legendary state. I really do sit around and fantasize about this. I dived in at the last moment, headed away the ball, heading to the goal. Oh, I took a boot to the face. Am I in a coma? I am in a coma. The nation waits with bated breath. He's okay.
Yeah, so there's not all that much to report about his time in China or Turkey, really. In Turkey, he played under Mancini. He said that in Turkey, you haven't really played in a Galatasaray Fenerbahce game until you've scored. And he did, not the first time round, but second time round. So,
I mean, once again, he is a big game player, isn't he, Vlad? You cannot argue with that.
he was only there for a year and a half, and then he was out of there.
And where was his next destination, Johnny? What lovable team did he go to next?
Back to old London town.
Oh, London Town, you say?
Yeah,
There's
back to
lots
the
of lovable teams in London. Which team did he join?
back to the bridge. Stamford Bridge.
Chelsea.
The pensioners.
Yeah, don't call them that anymore, do they?
No.
Although it was particularly apt when Drogba returned, because at this point he was old, wasn't he? He was like 36 by the time he got back to Chelsea.
My memory of the second coming of Jose was essentially that it was a kind of a bust. But they won the league that year when Drogba was there. Although he was a bit of a bit part player at this stage, but they did win the league.
Well, they absolutely did win the league, and pretty impressively. That was the little horses as well when he came back, wasn't it? My little horses need milk. Oh. You see, I love him.
That's quite good. All right. He deals with his international career separately. The elephant in the room, because Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast are called?
The Elephants.
Correct. Les Elephants. Yeah. See what he did there?
I mean, I'm grateful to him for this structure to the story because I mean, I'm glad for him, and I know that AFCON means a lot to him. But we didn't really watch that, did we? I've not watched many AFCON games in my life.
But he never actually won the African Cup of Nations, and perhaps even more disappointingly, they immediately won it when he retired.
Yeah, he does say it. He's like, I'd be a liar to say I wasn't a little bit disappointed to be part of a team. That is a sickener, isn't it? I mean, you've got this absolute golden period where you've got your Torres, and your Drogbas.
But even like they had players like Eboué, they had Gervinho. Like, it was a heck of a.
I lost to Zambia. Name a Zambian footballer, Johnny. Go on. One Zambian footballer. Name one. Name one. Do it.
I can't. You mean the Copper Bullets of Zambia?
Yes, of course. I meant the Copper Bullets.
Yeah, well, so what was interesting, I suppose, about Drogba is he played this big role in Ivorian politics, because throughout his career, the country was on the brink of civil war. Like, in one game, they had beaten Cameroon, their biggest rivals, and on television, this was to qualify for the World Cup. He called in 2006, and he called for there to be peace in our time. And this kind of catapulted him right into the center of Ivorian politics. He ended up bringing the team to the northern part of Ivory Coast to play a game there. And the kind of political divide was a northern-southern one. I remember at the time him being heralded as a kind of a peacemaker. It's a remarkable scene that he paints of, like, the team going up to the northern city and, people running after the bus. And of course he paints the picture himself, but it's still pretty interesting. And there was none of this in, Jamie Vardy's book.
That's absolutely outrageous, isn't it? Bloody Vardy.
Yeah, exactly. Drogba ends up occupying this role as a kind of iconic African figure. And really, he would have played for France given the opportunity, I think. But then I think, obviously largely because of his sporting success, but also because of this dabbling in the politics of Ivory Coast, he found himself in the lead up to the 2010 World Cup as very much being kind of the face of African football. He said at one point that he was when he was on the cover of Time, and he was the second African to be on the cover of Time magazine. Do you remember who the first one was, Al?
I'm going to take a stab in the dark, go for Nelson Mandela, sir. Was it? Am I right?
Yeah, it was Mandela and Drogba.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. He was just a huge figure, and he has a look about him as well. I mean, like, he really does have status. Also, at the end of the book, he tacks on a chapter about his family. Guess what? He loves them. So good for him.
Yeah.
Although he doesn't actually love his wife anymore. I checked. They got divorced in 2021. So
I'll go on.
I tell you what you never get in any of these books we've read so far, Johnny, is sex. There's no sex. No sex at all. I want to do a book with a bit of sex. Who would be an indiscreet footballer who would describe their sex? I want to hear about that. Like, there was never any of that. Like,
It's a good question. George Best?
oh yeah, I'm sure Bestie would be like that. There's one for the young listeners.
Who else?
Sir Nat Lofthouse. So, Johnny, would you recommend this book?
No. This is a big fat no, isn't it?
No. No, it is. It is a big fat no.
Yeah, as in you could pick this book up if you wanted a very easy read, but just don't bother with the first 100 pages or the last 100 pages, and maybe read the Chelsea stuff. Would you recommend this book? What do you make?
No, as I said earlier, I think you could get the whole gist of his career just by reading his Wikipedia page.
Ultimately, I suppose what you want from books is to learn about these characters that we see week to week. You mentioned earlier that his favourite Chelsea player of all time is Roman Abramovich. So this kind of spectral character. Did we learn anything about Abramovich?
No, as usual, we didn't learn anything about Roman, in as much as he's a very quiet guy. He has a quiet dignity about him. The fucking sheen that money gives you, like people, the respect they have for that man is astonishing.
Well, on one hand, I suppose the way Chelsea is now would make him look like he was pretty sensible, hand on the tiller, but then also his involvement in some of the kind of shadier elements of Putin's Russia maybe cast him in a different light as well.
Yeah, a little black mark against his name there.
Just a little one, yeah. I think we gave Barton like 2 out of 5. This book is probably worse than Barton's book. Barton's book was bad because Barton is such an insufferable asshole, but this book is actually a bad book.
Yeah, it is a bad book. There's no real insights into Didier Drogba. I certainly don't feel I know anything more about the man than I did when I started.
That's it, right? So I would say, okay, I'm going to give it a 1.5 out of 5.
Yeah, 30%. That sounds about right.
Okay, well, thank you very much for listening to us talk about a very bad book.
Yeah.
So the next book is Back from the Brink by Paul McGrath. And if this was a shallow book, I have a feeling Paul is going to pull us into depths that we haven't been brought to yet. Plunging new depths with Paul. Well, we are the Ademola Bookmen Podcast. We are on Twitter and Instagram. You can get us wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thanks to you, Alistair. Thanks again to Dara Fennan for the music. But yeah, thank you to you, Alistair. And thank you to everyone for listening.
Thank you indeed.
Let your body spin like there is nothing in life but dancing. I can't keep my hands off you, as if this looked like